All right. What is up, guys? Well, how's everybody doing? Will the Fantastic Four first steps save the MCU? Probably not. But they do have a future in mind. So before I get into the movie, I'll just start off like this. The MCU, as you know it right now, is probably going to vastly change after the next two Avengers movies. And we know this because the director and Kevin Feige, the director for the new X-Men movies that are going to be coming out, and Kevin Feige have said that they're going to be pivoting in a new direction with those movies. So they're not outright saying it, but if you look it up, they're basically saying that with the new X-Men series that's going to come out, they're going to be doing somewhat of a reboot for this MCU as we know it. Kind of like what James Gunn is doing with the new Superman movie. So things are going to change quite a bit, and people will be recast, and we'll see new versions of Doctor or Iron Man and Thor and Captain America and all those classic heroes there. Is the Fantastic Four a good movie? Yeah, it's pretty decent. I'd say it's a step in the right direction. It definitely feels more like a classic sort of Marvel movie, at least in the sense that it's more similar to the kind of movies that we would have gotten in phase one before everything sort of went topsy turvy. And there's a lot of complaints about the current state of the MCU. The most common one that I hear is that the MCU has become too woke. That's a fair argument to be made depending on how you're gonna what your definition of woke is. Woke is sort of a subjective kind of thing. I mean, in general, there are common tropes associated with it, but it's sort of subjective. I would say that the biggest problem with the current MCU is the structure is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Because in the first three phases, what we had was a very cohesive, very well put together plan. Or at the very least, if that wasn't the case for the creators and storytellers, at least they were able to make it seem that way. That everything that was going on, even though you had your own individual stories, everything was sort of building up to this one big moment with Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. And they did a really great job. In fact, after Avengers Endgame, I was like, well, they have to be over now because there's no way you can top what you've done. So anything going back is not going to feel as refreshing or as big if you go back to doing origin stories for different superheroes and you try to basically restart what you've already done. It's just not going to have the same allure, even if you do use different characters. Because a lot of these movies, at least as far as like origin stories go, they all follow very similar beats. And even the ones that don't have origin stories, the ones that just kind of drop you in the middle of the action, like a Superman movie or the Fantastic Four, for instance, these are narratives and plot lines that we've sort of seen before. Like, yeah, they can add their own new, unique spins on it, but in general, every superhero movie is going to follow a pretty similar trajectory as far as the plot goes. Like with the Fantastic Four and Superman, it's hey, here's a problem. Now we have to solve it. And in between that, there's going to be some things, like maybe the heroes don't succeed at first initially, and then something else happens, and then eventually they do succeed. So there's nothing really shocking or all that creative in the superhero genre, except that, sometimes with different characters, you get different flavors, okay? Different superpowers, different sort of action that you can see. Maybe a director tries to put a unique spin on things, you know, but that's almost impossible to do, especially like if you look at a movie like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. A lot of people were really hyped about that movie because Sam Raimi was the director for it. And people were pumped because we're like, oh, we're going to get a Sam Raimi Doctor Strange movie. And you do get little flavors of that here and there. But overall, it's a movie made by committee, which what I mean is that it doesn't feel that different from anything else that Marvel pumped out during phase 4, 5, and whatever 6 is going to be, I would assume. The Fantastic Four, on the other hand, now it does kind of have its own flavor to it. It very much is its own like standalone story. The director Matt Shankman, I think is his name. I don't really know what his style is. I did see WandaVision, and I guess you could kind of see some similarities there. Uh, but I mean, it's still a pretty generic superhero movie. It does have some feel good moments in it. Like I like the emphasis of family. I like that the movie, its main plot is that Galactus is coming to the world that the Fantastic Four live in, and Sue Storm is pregnant, and Galactus is going to eat the Fantastic Four's world unless the Fantastic Four give up Sue Storm's baby, who is this character named Franklin, whose powers, he's basically a god. Like the baby can bring people back to life. Spoiler alert. I'm not going to say who it is, but at the end of the movie, he brings someone back to life. One of the main characters. And then, Galactus wants him because he's a god, and Galactus himself is a god, and he's looking for someone to take over his job of eating planets because I guess he's just so hungry. And the camaraderie between the characters is very good. I had some concerns with Pedro Pascal. I thought Pedro Pascal would potentially ruin the movie. And this is not, maybe personally, I don't really like Pedro Pascal. His personality seems a little too extra to me. And I've seen a video of him like touching Willem Dafoe's wife's face, and just kind of gives me somewhat creepy vibes, like the type of guys that I know that like try and give excuses to touch women and make it seem okay. Like normally in my experience, those guys are usually kind of creepy. I get similar vibes from him the more I know about him personally, just based off of like the videos I see. I obviously don't know Pedro Pascal personally, but based off of the videos you see online, like that's kind of creepy behavior. Even if you do have anxiety and you're like, oh, I need to touch somebody to lower my anxiety. Okay, well, if that was true, why are all the people you touch beautiful women? Like, I haven't seen a video of you touching Bella Ramsey to quell your anxiety, so I don't know. But anyway, Pedro Pascal, he does a fine job as Reed Richards. So that's good because I was worried that he was going to potentially ruin the movie. He's a great actor in some things. He's not the Jesus Christ of acting. He's very versatile, which is why I would assume is part of the reason he gets a lot of roles, because he can do comedy and he can do dramas. Most actors, they either get stuck in a box of either or they get typecast in either of those genres as a particular type. So Pedro Pascal is a good actor in the sense that he can do a lot of different things, which is a testament to, whether or not you're a good actor. Personally, for me, I think that all actors should be able to do that. If you're not able to carry over yourself to different genres, comedy, drama, whatever, then you're probably not very versatile, and you're probably not that good. Just my personal opinion. But everybody does a good job. I was also worried about Johnny Storm. I thought that they were going to make him, kind of a beta male, I guess, because you had all these interviews about how he was not going to be the Johnny Storm from the comics and like a womanizer and whatnot. And look, there's a difference between a womanizer someone who actually gets girls because of their charisma, and then somebody who is touching people's faces because they have social anxiety. I don't have a problem with the characterization of Johnny Storm in this movie. Maybe I would have preferred that he did be a little bit more like the character that he is in the comics, but I digress. Either way, he did a fine job. The actor who played the Thing, who I am not going to bother pronouncing his name because I will butcher it, he did a good job as well. What's this in the chat? Fantastic Four first steps will make between 600 and 700 million. MCU will bounce back with Avengers Doomsday at the box office. Yes, I agree with you there. The question is will anything after these two Avengers movies do as well? And will it be a flash in the pan? Because nostalgia does sell a lot, obviously. You saw that with like Deadpool and Wolverine, and you saw that with a movie like Spider-Man No Way Home. But once you take out all those cameos and you take out all the nostalgia, are they still the movies? Do the movies still stand well on their own? Not necessarily. I think that X-Men Black Panther 3 will do well at the box office. That's what the chat says. I mean, yeah, there's potential. I mean, the last Black Panther movie made a lot less money than the first one. But, if you do get Denzel Washington in there, maybe you can get back some of the money you've lost. The X-Men is actually going to be a reboot too. I said that earlier in the video. So if you look at some of the interviews that Kevin Feige and the new director of the X-Men have talked about, they said that basically the X-Men that you see in their new movie going to be vastly different than the X-Men you've seen before. And it will essentially be a soft reboot of what the MCU is currently. And maybe that's a good thing. It could be a good thing to restart things off. Do you think DC Studios can make a comeback? I think that if any of these studios have a chance of coming back, they're going to have to accept that at first the box office is not going to be what it has been at its highest. So, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, some of the solo MCU movies, they made over $1 billion. That's not going to be where you start off with these new universes. It's not going to happen. You're not going to break $1 billion on a solo Superman movie or a solo Fantastic Four movie at first. You're going to have to build back up to it because we're sort of, let's just be honest. A lot of people have, not everybody, but a decent chunk of audiences have turned their backs on these franchises. That's why a movie, which I think is good, a movie like, what was it called? Thunderbolts, The New Avengers. I thought it was a good movie. The problem is that it didn't do very well on the box office. And that's a movie that sort of has entirely new characters. I mean, we've seen them before in, TV shows, and they've been supporting characters in other movies, but they've never really had a moment to stand out on their own. And now when you give them a movie where they can stand out on their own, even if it is good, if the audiences are used to mediocrity, then it's going to be really hard to get their money back. And I do think Fantastic Four could crack 600 million, 700 million. But remember, back in the day, a movie like, what was it? Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel made over $1 billion. And then you look at the sequel, doesn't even crack 300 million. So your days of just making regular superhero movies and hoping that they make a bunch of money is over. Do you think Anthony Mackie is going to stay Sam Wilson after the reboot? No, sorry, I don't think he will. And look, to Anthony Mackie's credit, I think Anthony Mackie is a good actor. I think he's a fantastic Sam Wilson. I think that he does a great job. I think him as the Falcon, fantastic character. Him as the Falcon alone could have run the Avengers. But trying to turn Captain America into this mantle and giving a white man, getting a white man's handy downs, I think that they're giving off the wrong message. Like they're trying to be progressive, but it's just coming off weird, whether you subconsciously know that or not. Like, just look at the box office for his movie. It didn't do well. It probably lost money, in all honesty. And the movie was chopped to hell. And this is coming from someone that actually, I didn't mind the movie. I thought it was just a regular movie. It's a regular superhero movie. It's no different from like the kind of superhero movies you've gotten in the early 2000s. Albeit that the editing is pretty choppy. Like it's obvious that movie was reshot to hell. Um, but him on his own, he could have led the Avengers. Him as Falcon, I think he could have done it. I think once this new reboot comes along, no, all these characters that you see, even like Pedro Pascal and the Fantastic Four, I highly doubt that after this reboot that they're going to be mainstays. I have a feeling that most of what we see right now is just going to be the last of it, unfortunately. Because there's a lot of good characters in the MCU. Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Chris Evans as Captain America. Who's the other one? Star-Lord. It's the other Chris. Can't believe I can't remember his name right now. But all these actors did very good jobs. And it'll be weird to see them get rebooted. And this is kind of the only thing they can do. Because think about it like this. After these two Avengers movies come out, and you've played in the multi-box sandbox, and you've changed things so dramatically where like anything is possible, time travel, different worlds, multiverses, different variations of these characters. Where do you go from there? What do you do to make it exciting? If you try and take these same characters and do like a grounded approach, are people going to buy into it? Will they buy into it? I don't know. I don't think so. You've made things too crazy and too expansive to bring it all back home and just tell a simple story. Fantastic Four did a good job of just telling a simple story. But I don't know if it's enough. Do you think David Zaslav going to keep Warner Brothers after the split up of assets? Good question. Well, they split up their assets because Discovery actually took all of Warner Brothers' debt. So it's really just, it's a creative, look, is it kind of a smart way to get rid of all the debt that Warner Brothers has? Yeah. If I had $40+ billion in debt for my company, I'd probably do anything I could to get rid of it. And Discovery has actually been financially successful, whereas Warner Brothers has not. So if Discovery can handle over $40 billion of debt, then Warner Brothers can, be debt free and get a better reputation so that they can secure better loans to make more movies. Then okay, yeah, it makes sense. David Zaslav sticking around for that. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the board is terribly happy with him since he asked for a bonus or something like that. He asked for, or I think it was he asked for higher pay, and the board said no. So I have a feeling that, maybe he sticks around another 5 to 10 years, possibly. But it's not going to be like, he's not going to be an anchor for the company. Probably not the same way that, what's that guy, Bob Iger? Bob Iger has been with Disney forever, But even he might get replaced soon. And in all honesty, all these guys, they're money guys, and that's good. But the problem is that money guys are not creative guys. And creative guys and gals seem to be more in tune with what audiences want. And they come into conflict with the money guys and the money girls because they just look at algorithms and numbers and, they look at trends and assume that all these things are going to make them lots of money. That's why for like a brief period, and sometimes you still see it, you see like TikTok influencers and guys like, what's his face? Logan Paul. You saw Logan Paul like pop up in a lot of movies and do a bunch of cameos, but none of those movies did very well. But people would put them in movies because they're like, look, they have 20 million followers on Instagram or something. And, 20 million followers on Instagram, they're not the same as, 20 million people that will go and see a movie. Do you think Dave Filoni will try to honor George Lucas as president of Lucasfilms? Dave Filoni is, I know a little bit about this, but I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I have kind of checked out Star Wars for a little while because it's not the identity politics. It's not any of the quote unquote woke stuff. It's just that I feel like they don't know what they're doing. Dave Filoni would probably be their best chance at getting some sort of cohesiveness and getting good characters. The problem with Dave Filoni is that he seems more obsessed with Ahsoka than he is with the rest of the universe. If he can broaden his horizon a little bit and stop having a huge crush on Ahsoka, then yeah, I mean, he could probably do some good things. He seems like a much better pick than Kathleen Kinney. I'll give him that. He seems like a much better pick. Kathleen Kinney took one of the highest grossing movies of all time, which is The Force Awakens. And from there, it's just downhill, box office wise, reception wise, relationships with the audience. A lot of audience members being very disappointed with the series. You now have the same kind of divisiveness in the Star Wars fandom that you do with politics. Like literally, it's like it's the far ends of the spectrum. You see a lot of people that won't watch a Star Wars movie with a black female lead because they're either racist or whatever. But for the most part, let me just say this: nobody gives a shit about what a character looks like for the most part. The only thing they care about is whether the character is good or written well. And that is the biggest problem with Star Wars. No one is going to give a shit about Rey Skywalker 10 years from now. They're trying to make a Rey Skywalker movie. I don't know if it happens. If it does happen, is anyone going to see it? Is it going to make $1 billion? Highly doubt it. Highly doubt it. So, man, I've gone very off topic from the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four, getting back to that, is a good movie, and people should see it because it'll probably remind them a bit of what the MCU used to be with the standalone stories. But the days of that are numbered because the next thing you have is the Avengers movies and the Spider-Man movie. I have some hope for. I think that comes out before the Avengers, but these next two Avengers movies are just going to be cameo fests. They're going to be very similar to Deadpool and Wolverine and Spider-Man No Way Home, but they're going to be those versions of those movies on steroids. And then after that, where do you go from there? I have no idea. All right. Well, I think I've made my thoughts and feelings about the MCU pretty clear. I think that, the way you see it is going to be numbered because in the years to come, everything is going to get rebooted and everybody is going to change and everything will be different. Will it be for the best? Let's hope so. But The Fantastic Four was a good movie, regardless of that. There's one person in this chat that has been trying to write something for what looks like the last 20 or 30 minutes, and they were never able to get their thoughts out there. So maybe next time they will. All right, Kevin, thank you for all your questions. I appreciate you hopping on the stream with me. And to everybody else that watches this video, I hope you have a fantastic day, just like the Fantastic Four. Ciao.